everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex, and this is Big Baby Reviews. Once again, I am joined by Mark Darden, hiding behind that cover of Youngblood #4. Oh, there he is! Surprise! And we're going to be covering today, as you saw, Youngblood issue #4 by Image founding father Rob Liefeld. Mark, how you doing? What's up?
I mean, since I've already read the book, I'm doing much better now.
Since you got through it. Yeah.
So, yeah, I was pretty down, but I'm back up. My spirits are back. So, yeah, doing pretty well. It's a fine day out there.
Awesome. I guess we should start with the cover. Have a look at that.
Sure. Pull it up.
If you want to pull that guy up there. So I'll give you a little bit of backstory about this issue from when I was a kid. I waited for this issue every week. I would go to my local comic book shop, and every week I would ask for it, and it was super late. It was, really, really, really late. And, week after week, I'd ask my buddy at the comic shop, the gentleman who owned it, Dave, Youngblood #4 in yet? Not yet. I just so happened to, at the time, I lived in a city called North Bay, Ontario, and I happened to go on a trip with my parents to the city that's fairly close to there called Sudbury. And, as a kid, when I'd visited another city, another town, I'd try to find out if there's a comic book shop there and try to convince my parents to get me to go there, because it was always fun to visit comic shops that aren't your regular comic shop. You think maybe I'll find some stuff I don't find in my shop. And it just so happened that for some reason that shop, when I visited, had actually received Youngblood #4. And it's this weird thing, because when this came out, I was 12 years old, so I almost kind of felt disloyal to my comic book shop. But I was like, man, it's right here, so I have to buy it, right? And I did. And basically the week after, it showed up in the shop at my regular store. But that's my little kind of story behind getting Youngblood #4. I had huge expectations. I was really looking forward to it. It was very late, so there was a lot of build up. And again, I gotta say, I was sorely disappointed by this one, unfortunately.
Yeah, 7 months from issue 3 to issue 4. That is a
what it is?
Time, yeah. And then it was another 4 months to get Brigade #4 to get the final 10-page conclusion.
Yeah.
Very inefficient issue, as we will see. And it isn't the 4th issue in the series, because they did issue 0 in between. So issue 3 came out, and then 4 months later, issue 0 came out, which issue 0, if we were to look at it, is like the same mostly the same creative team, but with extra guys filling in, but the colorist that we like. But it's practically like a redo of the home team's version, the home team side of issue #1.
Yeah.
It doesn't really offer new stuff. It's just showing you the stuff you already know, but in greater detail in some areas and less detail in others. But this is supposed to conclude the miniseries that was supposed to be 3 issues, and it became 4 issues. And this is I'll hold on to this one, but not for the Youngblood.
Yeah, listen, I gotta say, as not great as issues 1, 2, and 3 were, at least it seemed to be building towards something. We talked about this in past reviews. Issue 2 is probably the most solid overall. That's got the most kind of, plot points and actually something happening, some sort of story going on. And yeah, this, technically was meant to conclude the whole thing, and it just doesn't, right? Like you said, you get to the end of this issue and you're like, what? Continued in Brigade #4? You got to be kidding me. That was kind of the sense I got as a kid, right? And I feel like, with Youngblood, this is the issue, or with Rob Liefeld at Image, basically, this is where the issue where it starts to fall off the rails much more so than the previous issues, right? This is really, as a kid, I was really into issues 1, 2, and 3. And then when I got to issue 4, it was my first real disappointment from Rob Liefeld.
Yeah, when the conclusion was announced to be in issue 5, like my spidey sense went off immediately. Like, what kind of con is this? So I have to go buy this other comic, that I might not want, in order to get the end of this comic that I do want. That
That was a disappointing aspect to it as well, right? A bit of a marketing kind of tool there to get you to start buying Brigade if you weren't buying it. I was buying Brigade, to be
Yeah.
honest, because I was an Image junkie early on, and anything they put out I would buy. I was recently talking to my friend a couple of days ago about Jack Kirby and Phantom Force, right? And
Uh-huh.
at the time, I didn't know much about Jack Kirby. To me back then, his style was kind of old timey and looked like the '60s and stuff. And this
Oh,
was the '90s, so
yeah.
it wasn't quite as cool as later on. I definitely grew to appreciate it, and I really love
Yeah.
Kirby now.
Right.
But I bought it because it was an Image book, and it was pretty fun because it was cool to see all the Image founders and a few other extra guys, Scott Williams and things like that, inking Jack Kirby. That was pretty cool. But yeah, there's a lot of books when I look back to the first few years of at Image that I literally only bought because it was an Image book, not because it was any good.
Sure. Yeah. And yeah, we'll get more into the later books where there's a lot more quality coming in from the second wave.
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
Uh,
cover wise,
yeah.
it's your typical Liefeld kind of team shot that he's done
Yeah.
so much of over the years. Not a bad cover in any sense of the word. I don't
Yeah.
think it looks pretty cool. All the
Fine.
characters look good, but nothing more than that, really. I guess just a typical Liefeld cover.
Yeah, I would say it's my least favorite of the series. I mean, issue number one, that team shot, I'm always going to love it. Issue number two with Prophet coming out with the away team, very good. And issue number three, it's just three characters, but they're pretty impactful. It's that one's also not the most exciting, but it's still pretty good. It's better than this one. It is like it's just kind of it's incrementally coming on down.
It's a pretty generic Rob Liefeld cover.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember first time I saw it on the stands too, I picked up on it right away. I was like, the colors seem
Mhm.
darker than what I'm used to, right? We've talked about
Yeah.
this before where I really liked Brian Murray's coloring on
Right.
Youngblood, the first three issues. I thought it fit really well.
Hmm.
Again, Steve Oliff is doing the colors now, starting on issue 4. Not that he's a bad colorist. I just don't think his style necessarily suits Youngblood the best. It's not bad, but I definitely think it works better on darker books like Spawn, we've talked about.
Yeah.
And I really wish Brian Murray had continued coloring the series because I really, really feel there's, I've talked about that before, the synergy between Rob's
Yeah.
artwork and Brian Murray's colors just worked really well for me.
Yeah, I think it's two things playing into it. One with Danny Miki joining with issue three, and on issue three, it looks a lot like he's kind of trying to ape Rob, like where if you didn't know that someone else was inking it, you might just think Rob was in a little bit of a rush on some of it,
Yeah,
where it looks very Robbish. And this, we get a lot of darker lines, thicker lines. There's a lot more shading,
absolutely.
so
Yeah,
that's making it darker. And then the color change as well, which will, the colors are flat out darker, but also just the choices are not the same. It's the other colors they're a little more playful, and they are lighter. There is that, but it does feel more playful, more cartoony. They're a little more. They're not trying to be real all the time, so a little more fun.
I was gonna say that's exactly the word I was gonna use. Fun. It just the book. Just it's funny how a color scheme can affect how you feel about a book, but the book just felt more fun in
Hmm.
issue 1, 2, and 3 with the Brian Murray coloring, and then with this one, it just feels like we're moving into that darker kind of '90s vibe, which I don't think suits Youngblood as well. Even though we're getting quite a lot of violence and killing from these media government superstars that are in front of cameras all the time, which is kind of odd. We've talked about that
Yeah,
idea before. But yeah, it instantly makes it less lighthearted, I guess.
yeah.
One little detail we've talked a lot about
Mhm.
before: the inconsistencies in Rob's costume designs from page to page. This
Uh,
is a funny. It's just a funny little detail. It's not that I'm trying to nitpick or anything, but um, Chapel's necklace that we've got here on the cover, it's around his neck. As we go through the issue, it starts to change spots, and I'll point it out as we go
okay.
along. So on the cover, makes sense to me. Generally, when people wear chains, it's around their neck,
Mhm.
but I'll point out the weirdness later on when we get into the issue relating to that necklace.
Okay.
You want to
So,
crack this one open?
well, I want to look at the front to back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, because yeah, you're right. It's almost the same cover design, right? It's pretty crazy. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it very much looks like Rob took a sketch and moved the pieces around and altered them a bit. So
Wow.
it really shouldn't
Now
have
that you put them
placed.
side by side, wow.
Yeah, that's practically the same bedrock. I mean, he's so similar. Um, I mean, if you're looking at Sentinel, it's like you practically took the same figure and you just placed them in a different part of the shot and then obviously altered some details, but it's literally the same
Uh,
side pose.
Sentinel, do you mean Chapel?
No, Sentinel. I mean Sentinel over on the no, sorry, not Sentinel, Die Hard. My
Okay, gotcha. Okay, yeah, yeah,
Die
yeah.
Hard. Yeah, if you take Die Hard over on the left side of the cover, you literally have moved him over to the right side and altered his mask, and you took those whatever torch gun things off of the back of Chapel, and you put him over onto Die Hard, give him an extra strap. It's
It's pretty, yeah, it's pretty darn close. Even Shaft himself is like, the torso is a bit more twisted and the arms coming down, but the
yeah,
legs seem to be pretty much in the
yeah,
same position. That's
yeah. The
crazy.
legs are the
Yeah.
same. The head's very much the same, and then with the fill in with Bloodshot compared to Chapel, like that facial shot is very similar. The haircut is the same. So it's very weird to take your own character and sub in another character that's just like fills the same role. It's like, look, it's different, it's new, exciting. It's like it just like the other guy decided to go a little too much on the white face paint. It is if we didn't know this was a crossover, we might just think like, what's going on with Chapel? That's weird.
I will say this is probably the coolest Bloodshot's ever looked, though, to be honest.
Um, Barry Winslow Smith's art for cover number one.
Is probably that's
That's the
peak,
coolest he looks.
peak Bloodshot. Yeah, for sure. I get
But
it.
this, yes, I would agree with you. After the Barry Winslow Smith, yes, this is fantastic.
Because that's all he did, right? Barry Windsor Smith, just that one cover.
Yeah, he just did that amazing cover. Oh,
And I'm not saying Rob did much more because if I remember correctly, with the Extreme Valiant Image book, was it the red one? Red.
Yeah, red. Yep.
Rob drew very few pages in there. It was basically an Extreme Studios book. All the kind of second tier artists were doing most of the work there. So I don't even know if Rob actually drew Bloodshot again. So maybe just like Barry Windsor Smith, we just got the one.
We did the cover.
He did do the cover, yeah, yeah. I'm trying to think what the cover is.
It's just Shaft and Bloodshot like leaping in.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
One detail I just noticed now from the back cover, for the longest time, off to the right behind Shaft, there's a hand holding a knife or a sword, I guess.
Oh yeah, yeah,
One or
yeah.
the other.
Right.
Real quick, up until this point today, to be honest, I always thought that was Die Hard's hand.
Yeah.
But then I was like looking at it as you were talking. I'm like, but if it's Die Hard's hand, the hand is reversed, right? Like
Right.
It's not, so it can't be. And then all of a sudden it clicked, and I looked, and I'm like, oh, that's Bloodshot's arm. He's just kind of, his arm is just straight out holding a knife.
Yeah.
That's kind of an odd choice there.
Yeah. It is. It's very weird.
Like to me, if you're drawing this and you kind of maybe throw that in there thinking it's Bloodshot's hand or arm or whatever, but then you look at it and you go, wait a minute, if I just flip that hand, it looks way better in the image if that's Die Hard's hand, right?
Yeah.
So just a weird choice there.
Totally.
If we were to draw in Bloodshot's arm too, I feel like maybe it's a slightly longer, or the proportions are off or something.
Yeah.
Just an odd choice.
Yeah, the proportions are off. It doesn't look like that shoulder connects to that forearm.
Exactly. Yeah, it's very weird.
Even at the angle. The other thing would be if you wanted to go for drama, it would be that if the guy's got his gun here and they're kind of like menacing, have the sword coming down here so it's in front. Like if he had his hand down sort of towards his waist and his sword coming out across the body, like he's ready to go. I think like I would picture Snake Eyes being like that. It would make a lot more sense. And yeah, it would also make more sense to switch that arm up to make it Die Hard's because, hey, this is in a different world and Die Hard's going into battle with a sword.
Well, and right now, even though like we've ascertained that that's Bloodshot's arm, both Die Hard's and Bloodshot's arm are, overlapped by Shaft. And when I look at it, I still naturally, my brain wants to think that it makes more sense that that's Die Hard's arm, even just the proportions and the length of the arm and stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely. The other thing that I wanted to bring this up for is the fact that this does not advertise Deathmate. It merely advertises Youngblood Bloodshot crossover.
Yeah.
And 2 months later, we would get the Deathmate advertisement that would then show a different image of Bloodshot and Shaft leaping together, which would be the cover for Deathmate Red. That's now like, oh, it's Deathmate Image and Valiant crossover. So I couldn't find anything on it, but I did wonder if initially the crossover was merely Rob getting in touch with somebody at Valiant and being like, hey, I like this character. Can we work out a crossover? And then like, that's a good idea. And then maybe it expanded from there. Because Rob was kind of the guy that oftentimes would kick down the door and kind of get something rolling. And then people would get in on it. Like Image, it's kind of him wanting to go off and do a series. But then
Yeah.
Todd wanted to get in on it. And then Eric was like, yeah, that'd be cool. I'd like to do that. And then some more people got pulled in and you end up with Image Comics. So I kind of wonder if that's what happened here.
That makes a lot of sense, to be honest. Yeah, and because again, it's not Valiant Image crossover. It's a Youngblood Bloodshot.
Yeah.
One single character. It's not the whole roster of Valiant characters. Not yet, anyways, right?
Yeah. There's no mention of Deathmate here at all. Yeah. It's not
But
there.
I think, yeah, like Jim Lee jumped in, and basically this crossover mostly involved, or only involved, Jim Lee's studio and Rob's studio.
Yeah.
I know, Eric Larson has talked in the past, and McFarlane as well. McFarlane was like, I don't need to do this crossover to sell more books.
Yeah.
And Larson just really just stated is like, the Valiant characters do not interest me in any way, so not participating in that. One last thing about this ad I want to throw in that's kind of a bit of 90s nostalgia. The tagline at the bottom, "This blood's for you."
Yeah.
If anyone wasn't around in the 90s, it's a reference to beer ads on TV,
Yeah.
right? The Budweiser ad, "This bud's for you," was a very kind of popular tagline in the early 90s for that beer brand. So that's what Rob's playing on here.
Now, I will say maybe Eric Larson should have given Valiant a little more of a look because he would have been a great guy to do a Archer and Armstrong miniseries. Because you've got,
I think those characters would have suited him.
yeah, wisecracking Armstrong, who's a big fist fighting kind of guy, and then
Early,
yeah, and the opposite of Archer. I think if he had gotten into it, he would have actually liked that series and how they kind of could go anywhere.
Listen, I don't want to speak for Eric Larson, but I feel like, just like myself, the Valiant books really didn't attract me generally because of the art. They had, Barry Windsor Smith doing cool covers, Frank Miller coming in, all that stuff was great. But I found just the actual books, by the regular roster of Valiant artists just wasn't exciting enough. It's almost like, back in the day, Valiant was very focused on story and continuity. Image was focused on image and aesthetics and art. Had you combined the two, maybe that would have created kind of a solid, world and continuity and all that. But it was not meant to be. And I mean, they tried it with Deathmate, and it didn't really work out.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way.
To point on that, so with Valiant, with Marvel had where they were letting these artists kind of go off into their own art style, like they were letting them break away from the standard storytelling that Marvel usually taught, and then those guys broke away and started Image. Over at Valiant, you've got the guy who was the editor-in-chief going over and starting a company and going, yeah, we're going to use that formula that I believe in, that I've taught and continue to believe in. So you artists are going to have to fit into that box. So here's the Image artist breaking out of that box while this guy over here is trying to keep.
They're stuck in the box. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely now that you say that, it does make sense that like Jim Shooter was at Marvel and kind of set that editorial tone across all the books in the 80s. The Valiant books kind of looked a little 80s to me, a little bit of a something of a bygone era, even if that bygone era is just a few years back. But again, the Image guys were really, like you said, pushing things forward.
Yeah.
Huge, explosive, extreme visuals. And of course, when you're 11, 12 years old, that's going to attract your attention way more than, a great story, but with some kind of tame mid-shot storytelling, right? Jim Shooter's idea of storytelling was very functional, clear, concise, but mid-shot. You know what I mean? Like, just, it's almost the difference between, watching a TV show with Valiant and then going to Image and seeing a blockbuster summer movie.
Yeah.
visually, like that's how I compare it, at least back then.
Yeah. I mean, art wise, at least early days, Barry Whistler Smith and David Lapham were doing a
Yeah.
lot of great books. And there were some other artists who were really good, but unfortunately, they kind of ran a lot of the good talent out.
And David Lapham is a great artist, but when he was working at Valiant, it does feel like he was shackled a little bit, right?
Yeah, he was building. Yeah, it's a good point. He was very early into.
Once he left Valiant and after the whole Defiant thing, and
Yeah,
he started making his own books and stuff, he really kind of flourished as an artist and was a little bit more experimental, and his art definitely became more interesting to me at that point.
yeah, fair point. All right, let's try to
Get into it, yeah.
those are good asides there, folks.
Finally got the book open. All right.
Yeah. So the credits are basically, well, they're not basically the same. They, with every issue in this series, the credits change. People are coming and
Yes.
people are going. So, you know, we got Danny Miki was introduced last issue and he's on the inks again. And we'll see throughout this that his inks, he's becoming more his own, which these inks work really well over on Spawn, but they, I think, detract from Youngblood. Obviously, we see that Michael, the colorist. Oh, Brian Murray, excuse me.
Brian Murray, yeah.
Brian Murray's out. Steve Oliff is in. Obviously, we've already seen that Hank Kanaz, he was out after issue 1. Eric Stevenson comes in as editor, which I'm going to point out some spots where I think he really failed as an editor.
Wasn't really doing his job, yeah.
Yeah. Kirk Hathaway still here as the letterer. On issue 2 was the one where there was the multiple letterers where there must have been some kind of time crunch and there was a lot of lettering mistakes or choices in that might have been due to having to just rush and throwing something together the night before they hit the press. But yeah, the team changed every issue on this. It was of Youngblood. It was ridiculous. This first page, it's almost like you're looking at a different comic.
Yeah, the aesthetic is completely, I wouldn't say completely changed, but definitely changed to, slightly slicker, I guess, is how I describe the inks. But I liked that kind of slightly rougher look that the Rob Liefeld inking himself gave. So yeah, I remember looking at this issue right away and kind of going, yeah, it's not bad. It's not that I think it's horrible, but it's not exactly what I'm looking for in Rob Liefeld's art.
Yeah, it almost feels like, you know, how Mark Silvestri changed his style to more emulate what Jim Lee was doing and what people were loving, which is amazing that he do that, and he did it well. And I wonder if that's kind of what's going on here also with Rob, if like he's letting this inker make it slicker looking instead of the rougher style that he had. And now we've got a colorist who's also making it slicker rather than the rougher colors that we were getting that were more playful and fun.
Excuse me.
With, the ultimate problem being like, that's not what I wanted from this book. I've already got that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Here with Jim Lee.
We've already got that. Exactly.
Yeah. I like what Rob did, and he's getting away from doing what he does more and more.
Yeah, I feel like this issue kind of introduces us to what I would associate as the Extreme Studios aesthetic. Rob's inking himself, obviously, he kind of spearheaded that style doing that. But then with what Miki's doing over Rob here is what I feel like all the other Extreme guys started emulating, all the other pencilers and inkers and stuff. They were starting to emulate this kind of hybrid look between Rob Liefeld and Danny Miki rather than purely what Rob Liefeld was doing on his own, inking himself, which was always just a finer line and slightly rougher. And just, I've mentioned it before, kind of repeating myself, but the best Rob Liefeld to me is when he's inking himself.
Yeah.
This first page here is, okay, we've talked about the Rob Liefeld plot line, the one that he's got, right? Where the ship is going somewhere, the heroes are in the ship, going on a mission, and, eventually jump out to wherever they're going and face off against first, usually some faceless, similar looking minions, and then eventually the villain.
Right.
Same story here once again. And even this first page, I talked to you about how I purchased the recent new Youngblood #1 issue that came out I say recent, came out last year now. This first page is almost the exact same composition. The shot of the ship in profile at the top is pretty much
Yeah.
the same. Even the vertical paneling in here, he's got the ship coming down in the first one, then he's reintroducing you to some of the Youngblood characters in the panels. In the new issue #1, you've got silhouettes of Spawn, Ripclaw, and Savage Dragon, if I'm not mistaken, but the layout is exactly the same. And I think it's hilarious that Rob, in that first issue, puts them all in silhouette, because I don't know if for some reason there's a trademark or copyright issue where you can't, actually use Spawn or Savage Dragon, or he didn't ask permission to do it, even though it's an image book. I don't know how that works now today. But I feel like he purposely did it in silhouette just to avoid all those problems. But anyways, that's enough about Youngblood #1.
Yeah.
We'll stick to this one here.
Yeah, and this is decent storytelling. I mean, we do get this profile of the ship. We get the ship going down, establishing the lab place that they're headed to from the previous issue, and then the shots at the angles of the characters are pretty cool. The way they're coming in, for these guys, and then coming in the other way for these guys. All of that's effective. It's probably it's one of the better pages when it comes to giving backgrounds, because we do get a background for the ship, as simple as it may be, but it lets us know where they're at. Then when you get that shot coming from behind, we get enough lines to know that that's the viewing screen of the ship, that's the window they're looking out, and there's a chair. We've got the factory. So it's, for Rob, this is pretty good as an opener.
I think so. It's a pretty, storytelling wise, it's an effective page for sure.
Yeah. And then he's added this thing of having Die Hard log. And it's like, let's give Die Hard personality and character by having him relate the scenario of going in, and they've got to back up the team, and no one's heard from the team in a while.
Let's use Die Hard for exposition, basically.
Yeah.
Right? Like, catching people up, which is not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea, but since Shaft's clearly been established as the centerpiece focus,
the leader,
it would make
sense if it was him. I see what you're saying.
It would.
It's also kind of, anytime I see this kind of narration, I have to think it's very Frank Miller as well.
I think the way they could have made this work a little better is if Die Hard had a little bit where he's like, yeah, Shaft's the team leader in the public eye, but it's game time now, and I've been here since World War II. So
definitely has a lot more experience, right? Makes sense.
Yeah, Papa's going to be calling the shots for this one, kiddo.
Yeah, it's almost like he's kind of hinting at that in the story while not kind of specifically coming out and saying it. But yeah, Die Hard is almost the de facto leader much more than Shaft.
It would make sense.
It seems like in this issue.
Yeah. Yeah, you look pretty in front of the camera, kid, but I'm going to need to keep us alive on this one.
Yeah, he's the public face, because Die Hard, a guy showing up to talk to the public in a full facial mask, maybe not, the best kind of look for Youngblood.
Yeah. And he's doing the Kirby thing. Oh, well, not exactly, because he doesn't go splash page to double page splash. He gave us panels, but he did go from, so I guess it's a little bit that, but we get the 2-page splash. Again, decent shot going into the ship, and you can see that it's wide and then narrows. So that's put together pretty well. It's cool. We can see some tech.
I got to wonder, though, again, if Liefeld is doing these backgrounds, maybe he's kind of penciling in some basic lines, but I feel like he's getting a little bit of help here, like he's had in past issues, right? Maybe it's not credited in this issue, but I remember it was Carl Alstater, I think, was doing some of the technical stuff. It says, I forget what they credit him with exactly. They don't write like background artist, but they like technical advisor or something like that, right? Which basically means he's drawn the backgrounds and the technological.
And honestly, I wish Rob would just keep that then, man, if you don't really want to do a lot in the background.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. If it's going to make the book look better and more complete, it's kind of a manga production kind of thing, right? Which, they do in Japan all the time. So, as long as it looks good and there's not too much of a disconnect between the figures and the backgrounds, as is the case here, I think whoever's doing the backgrounds is doing a really good job of making it look seamless, between the characters and the backgrounds that they're in. A lot of feet on this double page spread. A lot of feet.
I was going to point that out throughout the issue. You'll see Rob's like, oh, I can't draw feet, can I? All right, I'm going to throw feet into everything. There's even one where there is that little hill thing, and you still see the feet coming like over it. So, yeah.
That's definitely on purpose. Yeah.
The feet in this issue. I do appreciate that he put the names in case this is your first issue or you just kind of forgot because these are new characters. We've talked before about the weight issue. It doesn't make a lot of sense for Bedrock to be on this side of this, like based on how heavy he is. He's like a couple tons. You really should have like everybody else on the other side of the ship, or Bedrock be sitting in a chair in the middle.
To balance things out.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be funny if this whole double page splash was just slightly tilted
Yes.
towards
With him on one side, everybody else on the other side, and it's still tilted towards him? That would have been a good.
Like they actually have a, like, you know, it'd be nice, a little bit of dialogue there, literally saying like we gotta balance things out. So that's why we're all, you know, 3 or 4 characters on one side and then Badrock on the other, or Bedrock. No, sorry, this is the issue, I think, where he becomes Badrock, right? Is this the first time he's called that? I think so.
Yeah, we'll have to see, because real quick,
still says Bedrock here. Still says Bedrock.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
and there's the mention of Stormwatch in here that's interesting as well, right?
So
they haven't been alerted.
Yeah, I thought that was lame. I thought that this issue would have been a great opportunity since Youngblood already showed up in Wildcats, and that made a lot of sense. That fit as a crossover of like, hey, you're attacking the vice president. Yeah, Youngblood got called in, so now Youngblood's battling the Wildcats. This would have been a perfect opportunity to have Stormwatch reacting because the UN called him into this issue going on in Germany, and then Youngblood run in and like, oh shoot, we're working with Stormwatch. It's nice that they mentioned that they exist, but it really should have just go ahead and bring them into the scenario, because that would be thematically accurate.
Absolutely, yeah.
The other
Bedrock also sporting the Rambo,
yeah,
you know, tied around bandana look, which I'm pretty sure is where Rob got the idea for this.
Oh, sure.
It seems to always want to like tweak the costumes. Every issue, the costumes change a little bit. Shaft has a jacket all of a sudden, which I think can be cool and fun, right? I you know, as long as it's consistent, which sometimes it isn't with Rob. But yeah. Oh, speaking of that, here's another. You know, I was talking about the necklace on the cover. If you notice now, all of a sudden, the necklace is no longer around his neck. It kind of goes around his collar.
Yep.
Which is an odd look. I've never seen anyone really do that with a necklace, so it's an odd choice. Sometimes I wonder if there's a bit of Mr. T inspiration behind Chapel.
That could be
hilarious to have Chapel just have like the 10, 20 chains that like Mr. T wears.
That would have been great. That would have been absolutely great. And they could have made fun of him and he'd be like, hey, you know, I like to say flashy at all times. I also feel like seeing this team going in as the rescue team feels weak. Another reason that Stormwatch should have been called in, because the away team is so much better when it comes to powers. You've got a guy in a mech suit. Okay, you've got a big guy. Bedrock's the better one. But you've also got a woman who controls water and moisture and creates all these waves. You've got this triple psionicist who really is like their nuclear bomb that they could set off at any time. And then you've got 2 warriors, one that's from an alien planet, and the other one is Catman. And then you're sending in as the big backup. Okay, cool. We've got a cyborg. Great. He can't blast, but he can fly and he carries weaponry. We got a big, strong guy that's better. Then we got Photon, who should be messing some stuff up, but
we never get to see it.
Yeah. He should be a big secret weapon on this team, but is ineffectively used. And then we've got 3 humans.
You're right. They don't even have any powers, right? They're just highly skilled, trained, you know, humans.
Yeah. This really feels more like well, I mean, we got to send help, and this is what we got.
We got 2 teams, so we got to involve them both, right?
Yeah. Best of luck. You pretty people have try to come back with your faces.
Photon just ends up being a background player, right? We never really get. He almost could not be in this book, and you wouldn't even realize it.
Yeah. No, they could have left him behind again, had an argument. He could have been recaptured by his alien race and be on trial right now. We wouldn't miss him. And it's very ineffective because he really should be part of the big powerhouse they're bringing in. The other thing I wanted to say about this page is that if you look where the lettering is, Die Hard's monologue balloons really should start up in that upper left corner.
Yeah.
And move the other one just below that to create more space to take Vogue's balloon and move that way up onto the page so that she can have her conversation. You read Die Hard's part, you would naturally go to her balloon to then roll over to Shaft's balloons, which his second balloon shouldn't be down here. It should actually be up with his first one, connected, to keep it that read this, now read this, and then you would get over to the little conversation between Bedrock and Shaft. They make this lettering very confusing where your eye does not know where to go, but the opportunity was there to do it in a natural flow.
Yeah, it's almost like they threw that extra tail between those two word balloons to hopefully guide you to that next lower one. But without it, for sure, naturally, you're going to go left or right. And I think even with that tail in between, I still read it left or right originally,
And it's just weird that you would start up, go down to here, then jump back up, go here, jump back up, go over, and then jump to the bottom of the page. Like it's
a lot of visual acrobatics. Yeah. And then what makes me laugh is just this little bit of dialogue that Photon's got. The only, I think, speaking line he's got in this whole book. We're holding position, ready when you are, Shaft.
Yeah.
And even that word balloon is kind of pushed behind Bedrock and Die Hard. Like it's almost like it was an afterthought. Like, oh shit, we need to have Photon saying something, and they just kind of threw it in there.
The only other thing I want to say on this one is that since Photon, one of only 2 flyers that are in this group, yet he is also flying the ship, and they should mention that, like, hey, he's from this alien race that flies through space, and he crash landed here. So he is actually like the most skilled pilot we have because he's been flying spaceships. So, like, just go ahead and explain that a little bit to like, oh yeah, Photon's our best pilot because he flew through space. Like, none of us have his experience.
And doesn't Photon just stay in the ship? I don't even think he goes on the mission.
We're getting there, buddy.
Yeah. Okay. I like, because I'm right now, because we're not seeing the pages, I'm just kind of going through from memory, and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't remember Photon even really being involved.
It gets so bad. So then we jump to what should be this action-packed 2-page splash, but it's visually pretty boring. Like, there's not really enough going on to warrant taking up this much real estate for this shot. I would almost contend that it should just be like the first panel of page 1.
Yeah.
That would be enough. And then you could have panels for storytelling. And it should be Die Hard and Sentinel flying out the ship and like Die Hard and not Sentinel, excuse me. Die Hard and Photon, like Photon flying out, and we see him doing his thing, and he's like zipping around the area, and maybe then we see him with some, like, he should be the guy going into this, and like he's blasting some of these what are the disciples, like, give him his moment.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's a bad shot necessarily, but it could have just been at worst one splash page, right? It could have easily fit on there. The shot of Die Hard, I think, looks pretty cool, but here's an example of where I start to see, especially on his arms, the inking from Danny Meeke is quite different than what I traditionally, I think, what Rob Liefeld would have done on something like this. And it does have a little bit of like an homage studio kind of feel with the hatching on the hands. So it's almost like this weird hybrid Rob Liefeld homage studios kind of inking style. Again, trying to give it a bit more slickness, I guess, is what they're going for. I do, as minimal as the backgrounds are, these kind of smoke towers.
Sure.
I do kind of like the texture and the inking on them, at least the ones on the left. And that smoke is just uncharacteristically, excuse me, trying to say that properly, not kind of a Rob Liefeld look or texture at all. I think they look pretty cool. It's interesting, but not the Rob Liefeld aesthetic at all. So I don't know if that's Danny Meeke just kind of going crazy on that, or if Rob, really did some, super light, undetailed sketches on that smoke there. But I do kind of like it. It's like a rougher edge that's thrown in there that kind of works for me. And all the kind of twisting lines of the clouds behind the ship and Bedrock there, I think that looks pretty cool.
Yeah, and there's motion lines behind the ship. It's too bad that they used the same color for the sky in the motion lines as they used for the swirling sky. Because
I
if
get
they went to
confused a
like
little bit.
a
Yeah.
blue and a pink or something, which honestly probably Brian Murray would have done,
Yes. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
used a different color, and then that would have made that stand out more and feel a little more exciting and dynamic. But I
Yeah,
agree.
because let's and because the ship is obviously on a different plane than the clouds behind it and the characters in front of it, so it
Yeah,
makes sense to use a color to create more distinction there for sure.
yeah. But so far, we are at least getting backgrounds of some type, a little bit of letting us feel like we know where the characters are at.
Yeah, well, we get just enough, right? We've seen the top of the buildings and a bit of smoke on page one, so when we get to that splash page, we're not confused as to where they are.
Yeah,
But again, the same old plot line of the ship showing up and the the characters jumping out and going on their mission.
yeah. And then it carries on to it gets confusing. Die Hard flies through an already broken window, but then still crashes in through a wall. So that doesn't, like in comics, we know that we only see like key moments. We see this moment,
Yeah.
and then we see the next moment, and our brain connects the dots of like how this leads to this, but this doesn't lead to this. There's a missing panel. There should be a flying through the window, but then he's flying at an inner wall, and then he's crashing through that.
But
Or
then
you
even
gotta,
then, the angle to me would almost suggest like he's coming through the ceiling or the roof, right? In that second panel. So it's like, he's kind of going horizontally and then all of a sudden he's going vertically. So I don't know exactly what kind of, gymnastics the Die Hard is doing here. But yeah, there's a missing sequence there in between.
yeah. And then in panel 3, and I'm not sure if there was a coloring or whatnot, like Die Hard is so into the mass of robots that his arms disappear. Like
Yeah,
his,
you should at least see a hint of shoulder or something. And it's, yeah,
yeah, it is just literally like it's almost like he's doing this to the robots, like giving them the hug, but not
double
enough.
clothesline or something. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but there's not enough, just enough arm. Give us a little bit of arm in there so that we feel like he has arms, because it looks like suddenly he just his arms have been cut off.
Yeah. It's a weird look.
Yeah.
I do like on the top of the next page, I've said this many times, using those abstract shapes in the background there, kind of similar to what was going on in X Force #1. Anytime I see that stuff, I really like it. I've mentioned about how I think it works really well with the Rob Liefeld's art to create these kind of
Mhm.
shapy, abstract backgrounds, even though they're not literally, the walls or the rubble or whatever's going on in the background. Just it evokes kind of a technological wall of some sort, right? And I think it works really well here.
Yeah, it gives
But
us.
the coloring of it is again too dark, not poppy enough, I guess, not
Yeah.
bright enough.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's changed from seeing Rob inking himself with Brian Murray's fun colors to then like, okay, Danny Meeke trying to emulate Rob to then like Danny Meeke now doing his own style that's not the same as Rob, plus a change in the colorist. It's just such a it's not what we wanted.
It,
Um,
it it really changes the atmosphere, just the general atmosphere of the book. I don't think the characters change in any meaningful way from issue 3 or issue 2 to 3 to 4. What's really changed is the inking and the coloring, and it just shows you how it affects the mood and the vibe of the book.
so this also gets into like I was saying like earlier, like Photon should finally have a purpose. Like see him fly out the ship and go on a recon. But also they have Die Hard and Bedrock come down here together, and then just the fight focuses on Die Hard so much. It just feels like Bedrock's just kind of following behind. And I feel like this fight right here is where Bedrock should have been like, I got this one, and then just show Bedrock taking out these robots while Die Hard continues on, because as we're going to see on the next page, they run into Prophet. So it would have really been great to just, yep, Bedrock's fighting robots, Die Hard continues down the hall, and then you swap pages and oh, boom, Die Hard runs into Prophet. Sweet. Because basically Bedrock's not in this, battle much either. Like it's almost all Die Hard and some Prophet. So that would make a better excuse for like, yeah, Bedrock's back there because you saw him fighting those robots. He's back there. Now Die Hard's over here fighting these robots with Prophet. Would be better storytelling.
Absolutely. Yeah. But then again, as we've seen with this whole Youngblood series, there's a lot of improvement that can be thrown in to make things make a lot more sense, or to have characters actually do and be there to do meaningful things, right?
Yeah.
Always seems to be characters in the background, just not really affecting the story or doing much.
Yeah.
Already to me, it seems weird that they would just, send Die Hard and Bedrock, as a kind of a first wave. Why wouldn't you send the whole team? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It seems odd.
Or at least send Photon with them, and then that's the three
Yeah.
going in, and then the three humans are going to follow behind after the powerhouses has maybe checked it out a little.
Absolutely. This shot of Prophet here, I've talked about this before, how Rob, I feel like when he encounters, artists and sees certain things that they're doing that he likes, he incorporates it really quickly into his artwork. I don't remember there being such obvious veins on Rob Liefeld's musculature all through X-Force, and even in the early issues of Youngblood. I feel like this is the first issue where we start seeing these kind of extreme looking veins, um, here specifically on Prophet, and I think we'll see more throughout the issue. And I don't mind it. It looks cool. It's very extreme. It's very 90s. But I feel like, this issue has a pit preview. And one guy who I always thought did really cool veins was Dale Keown. He was doing them on the Incredible Hulk, and he's doing them on Pit. So I feel like Rob maybe, encountered that at some point, or maybe just really noticed with this first, when the Pit preview pages are coming in for this issue, he's like, oh man, Keown's doing some really cool veins here. So I'm going to start doing that.
Yeah. Okay. I'm flipping ahead and I can kind of see that.
There's kind of a similar treatment in the way they're drawing veins, which is, I know this sounds weird, but like, Eric Larson draws really cool veins, but not exactly like this. There's a different kind of way and aesthetic to them. So,
Yeah. That would
yeah,
have
I
been the
definitely,
other guy I would have thought of was Eric Larson, and since he already had the Bedrock versus Savage Dragon. But yeah, I see your point.
I definitely feel the veins are more in the kind of Dale Keown vein, to make a pun, than in the Eric Larson one. Also, once again, throwing in the first and second panel that abstract technological background that I love so much. I
Sure.
just think that, this shot of Prophet here could be a cool. I'm thankful it's not a splash page, right? That there's a bit of storytelling going on,
Yeah.
but just that shot would make a pretty cool splash page
Yeah.
with better, brighter coloring for Brian Murray.
Yes. We agree on that throughout. Yeah. I I remember seeing this one as a kid, and when we get to this page of Prophet, I felt so disconnected from issue 2 and even issue 3 of seeing this character, because his aesthetic looked very different. I felt it the most on him. It was how the costume was on him. It seemed like he had way more battle damage the last issue, so that inconsistency pulled me out of it. And the
Yeah,
colors seemed wrong. Like, it just seemed like there were some details missing from the costume.
yeah, and the coloring, you're absolutely right. Is like, again, Prophet had a pretty vibrant purple, look and costume. And here, once again, a big difference between the two coloring approaches is Brian Murray's colors are much more saturated, and Steve Olaf's colors are much more desaturated, right? So, you know, you start when you desaturate, you start to pull the color towards gray, where when you're saturating, you're just making it more and more potent, I guess, as a color. And again, I definitely feel that approach works better with Rob's art than the desaturated kind of look that we're getting here.
So this page also brings me to where I feel like Eric Stevenson really majorly failed on this, where he let Rob down. Rob made some critical mistake here, and Eric did not catch it or didn't speak up enough. I don't know, but there's a critical error, and that's explanation of Prophet #1. That's why I put it there, because we're going to see it again and again. They run into Prophet, and Prophet kind of explains who he is. He says, "My name's John Prophet, and I'm uncertain where I am, why I'm here, but my mission is to beat the disciples. Disciples who are what? well, there's no time for this right now, but we got to fight the disciples. Okay. So I'm going to go fight them. And if you want to fight them with me, then, cool, cool. But otherwise, just try to stay out of the way. So they start fighting the disciples together. Now, this is obviously, we already know this. We already read this in issue 2 of who Prophet is, stuff about the disciples. It's not very deep or in depth, but like Prophet was created to fight his disciples in the future, but instead he got woke up now and the disciple showed up and he's got to fisticuffs them. So we get a little summary, kind of reminds us, the reader, but it's also to let these characters who are being introduced to him know what's going on. And then we just get this fight. And it's mostly Die Hard doing the fighting, who we just saw fight the previous robots, which is why I say it should be Bedrock back there fighting those robots while Die Hard moves ahead so that we get to see Bedrock doing something. We should have seen Photon fly out the ship, maybe flying around. Maybe there were some disciples out there for him to blast so that, boom, Photon's in action. Finally, Bedrock's doing something. Now Die Hard's doing something. Each character's doing something except for the 3 humans who are still on the ship, waiting to be the backup after the situation has been assessed a little bit.
Yeah, and there's some funny little bits of text and dialogue here that I just want to go over. At the bottom of the page on the left, Prophet says, "There's no time for talk, only action." It's like he's describing Rob Liefeld's writing, right? Like that's, we don't have time to explain anything, just lots of fights, right? That's what's cool. So I thought that line was pretty funny and ironic in a way, because obviously when he wrote it, I don't think in any way he thought of that, but it's kind of funny. And then on the next page, Prophet has said, again, there's no time to talk, only action. The disciples are upon us. If you choose to fight with me, then do so. If not, then step aside so as not to interfere. This Prophet is quite a character. We'll help him until we've reason not to. So you're just going on this guy that you've never met, that he's a trustworthy guy, he's the good guy and they're the bad guys. What if it's the opposite? Die Hard doesn't really know here. So that line is like, we'll help him until we've reason not to. That's he doesn't seem like a fine strategist with experience since World War II.
Okay, for most characters, this makes sense because you look more like me than they do, so we must be the same team.
It's a
that
cultural
over there
thing.
that look different must be bad.
Robots must be bad.
Yes, right? Robots must be bad. Now, in the case of Die Hard, though, he might be like, wait a minute, I'm mostly robots, so which side should I go with here? What's left of my humanity or this technology?
He's a mixed race superhero, so he's quite a conundrum here for Die Hard.
Yeah, but in most battles, that this was better set up, you could think of like all the humans coming from like different places, different worlds, teleporting in, and they're like, I don't know I don't know exactly what's going on, but there's humans like me fighting, and those things that ain't like us. That's probably what we're here to deal with. So we're probably on their side.
Well, it's kind of this weird. I imagine you've seen Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
That whole thing where I love that movie because a lot of people are like, oh, that's a stupid movie. No, it's actually a very smart movie. If you're only watching it at the first degree, then yeah, it's kind of pompous and stupid and whatever. But then the second and third degrees come in and it's actually quite smart, and it is saying something where when you get to the end, when you start the movie, you're like, man, the humans are the heroes and this, and by the time you get to the end of it, you're kind of going, well, it really starts to seem like the humans attack these, space insects for no reason, really. They don't, you start off feeling sympathy for the humans, and when you get to the end and you know more about the conflict, you start to have sympathy for the insects. You really do.
Yeah, it really does begin to balance out where it's like, we're not really right. They're not really wrong. We don't exactly know who's more at fault here.
It really brings out the ambiguity of conflict and war, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's a great movie. It's a clever movie, right? If you catch that.
And it's supposed to seem dumb, and then you're supposed to think about it.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's meant to be that way.
Yes. They're going along with a whole lot of stuff like, this is just the right thing to do. And it's like, ooh, maybe things a little more.
It's got that great Paul Verhoeven kind of vibe to it, similar to RoboCop, right? Another one of his movies. When you see the ads on TV and stuff and the propaganda, it's, you know, and I love in that movie too how, you know, every time he meets like a veteran, he's got like a robot hand or a prosthetic leg, or you know what I mean? It's like they're kind of hinting at all the way through that you guys are just cannon fodder, right? Like that's what you're being brought into this, you know, space army force for, right?
But then every time, every one of them's like, no matter.
They're super gung ho about.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Good movie.
Yeah,
yeah, same kind of deal here, right? Who really knows who the bad guys are here? It's not that clear.
Yeah, and this is so there is something I do like about this one, and it is the 4-panel grid. I like how he did that. There's just enough black to divide them. We do get first panels, got some action, bam, hitting this robot, but then we get a close-up, which isn't necessarily bad, but I do feel like you could have gotten more out of these 4 panels because you get close-up, then you get a stare-off, then you get a guy going for a weapon, but it's not a very action-packed way of going for a weapon. Like, it's not like a sword draw where, like, sword's already out, but motion lines leading to the, you know, the sheath, which we might have gotten in a better composed comic. I'm just reaching back. It's like the video game where, like, when Batman reaches for an item and he always just reaches behind his back and then the thing just appears in his hand, but we're just getting the reach back. It's again, could be better.
It almost is like Die Hard's got an itch on his back and he's got to scratch it.
It could be. Yeah, you could just change out the dialogue and be like, yeah, boy, this fight, it's a real tough one. I'm really struggling. Hit you. Scratch his back though.
And kind of similar to the front cover and the back cover, the 2 panels here on this page on the left, the top and the bottom, if you really pay attention, those disciples are pretty much in the same position. Those background disciples. Yeah. And even Prophet, it's almost like he's in exactly the same position, just rotated.
Okay, yeah, the way you pointed out, that's literally looks like they took the shot, moved it here, they changed the line a little bit, they had him light up, but then it's gone from...
He's just rotated. He literally looks almost like he's in the same position.
Which would make a lot more sense if these jumped out at him and he was here and had to react.
Exactly. Yeah.
It doesn't, it's not effective. It looks like it's done to have to rush through a page, get a deadline done, but it's sacrificing the story and taking us out of it because, well, what just happened here? Like, you're punching, you're in the action, but then now you're just facing off against something. That should have been the first thing that happened.
And both panels are from the exact same angle and the exact same kind of zoom, right? So it's like, there are instances where doing that makes sense. Here, it doesn't. It just doesn't make sense to repeat that exact same kind of composition.
No, absolutely does not. Would always point out, we saw these ads a ton through the 90s. Entertainment this month, this comic distributor company was constantly getting their ads in, but in Image books, Image was always prominently the first books, the top books, getting the most real estate, despite being a newer company with very few products.
But they were selling like hotcakes, right? So, you know, you go with what's popular, especially if you're some sort of, I don't know if you call these guys a distributor or right? Like, you know, whatever's selling best is what you're going to focus on. Also, what's funny, because we can compare and contrast right away. That shot of Die Hard on the left at the top there is from YOUNGBLOOD Strike File.
Is it identical or really similar? Because I saw it and was like, oh, that's so similar, but I wasn't.
I mean, it's just flipped, right? Like with the shot of Die Hard right here on the right.
Oh, you're talking about from the ad. It's
yes, sorry.
Oh,
the shot from the ad and this shot in the splash here is pretty much the same, just flipped. And you've got the shield.
Oh, yeah, it is flipped, and the shield is changed. Yeah,
but it's pretty darn similar.
Yeah.
Also, again, with my theory of Rob Liefeld encountering cool stuff in other artists' work, it might be hard to see here because it's pretty small. But that shot from YOUNGBLOOD Strike File of Die Hard. If you look at his thigh where his costume's kind of ripped, you notice the stuff hanging off of it is kind of got that phone cord, twisty phone cord kind of look. Guarantee you he's looking at Sam Keith and he's going, oh, that looks cool. so let me throw that in there too.
Yeah.
That's the kind of, thought process I always imagine Rob Liefeld kind of doing. Is like, looking at Sam Keith, oh, that stuff's cool, let me throw it in. Looking at Stephen Platt, oh, the double lighting, yeah, very cool, let me throw that in there.
Yeah, I agree with you. And then story-wise, I mean, just nothing's happening. Like they're in the
This
middle.
is
And the mind-boggling problem with that is why draw so many pages to have no advancement in the story to end the issue without a conclusion, so that you have to go get another issue. But like you've wasted
stop
so much
wasting the
time.
real estate here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just
You
finish
you
it
can
here because
no
here
no
we've got
story has progressed on this page from the last. Like
no.
nothing.
I mean, literally, they leap out the ship. Okay, great. You wasted 2 pages just for that, which I think was a waste. I think you could to get this done with half a page and then actually give us more story. It could have happened in here, and then they've crashed into the building. They're fighting some robots. Okay, it should have been Bedrock doing it. Whatever. And then boom, runs into Prophet, and nothing really happens on this page except an introduction. Bedrock's in the background, but he's not actually doing anything. The robots appear, and then there's practically no action on the next page. I mean, one robot gets punched, but it's a face shot, it's a face-off shot, it's a I'm growing for my weapon. And then the next shot is like, I'm holding my weapon now. And now I'm
I'm
holding
just
my weapon, but we're showing you the robots again.
just standing here looking cool. Like that's really all this is. This is not, a storytelling sequence in a comic. It's a poster. It's a splash page, right? Like it's a pose. It's
Yeah,
an advertisement, basically.
yeah. And it's great to have these, but if you just do it page after page, the effect's worn out. It's not a like page turner to like, oh, that's a cool shot, and like back to the storytelling. It's
Yeah. Probably one of those first issues where we start to really see the cracks in Rob Liefeld's storytelling, where he seems to be getting a little bit lazier and lazier and doing backgrounds and multiple panels and just going for cool looking splash shots, right?
yeah, it's frustrating.
Another reason why this issue's not so great.
Yeah. And then we do finally get into action, but again, you don't need all the panels to be so big. Some of them could be small, they can be cropped in. The first one seeing the robot, that is cool, but it doesn't need to be that big. You could just do a smaller panel still showing most of the robot and him crashing into it. And then taking up so much real estate to do a close up of the face, but with a fist, like that can just be a smaller panel. This feels like this could be a single page rather than two.
I do like that first panel though, just because of the great foreshortening on that figure of Die Hard crashing
Mhm.
into the disciple. I think that looks really good, and it's something that Rob Liefeld over his career seems to do less and less of the foreshortening, the proper
Yeah.
foreshortening. In the newer stuff that he's been publishing, everything's kind of just head on mostly. So I will give him props for attempting a fairly difficult bit of foreshortening that works really well here.
Yeah, it's a good pose. The mistakes in it or oddities are the feet being straight forward, as if you're still standing. Because if you were
Yeah,
leaping or flying, regardless of which one it
they'd
is,
be yeah.
yeah, the feet should be varied and they should be back. But also his hand position to the shield is as if he's holding onto the shield via one strap, and one
The
strap
bottom strap,
at
yeah,
the
it's a
bottom.
little odd.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it needs to vary the hands out, one up here, one here, or the strap needs to be in the middle. But here and here would make more sense with a big shield. Otherwise, you would hit and the shield would come back at you and whack you in the head because you put all the pressure on the bottom part. Impractical. Also, when you get to the next page, which only has 4 panels, again, like if you're gonna have so much fighting, reduce the panel size, get the fighting so you can get some more story advancement and plot in, but also the shield suddenly gets way bigger. Like that,
Yeah, you're right.
right?
And all of a sudden he charges it as well. I
Yeah,
appreciate the use of Kirby Crackle, which I always like, but
yeah. No, he explains the tech guys worked him up a new weapon so he can do a Captain America throw, but advance it with an ionized energy.
yeah. So Rob can work in the next kind of cool thing he wants to work into the the I guess Die Hard weaponry.
Yeah. So by using up so much of the page space with just these few panels, 6 panels across 2 pages, meanwhile, Bedrock has done nothing.
Yeah, it just seems like he's standing around, right? Like what's Bedrock's just kind of soaking it in and looking at what's going on. It's kind of odd.
Yeah. And then Prophet also not involved. Like some of these panels are big enough, you could show the other character somewhere in there, at least a piece of them in the background, like also like
What's going on with those guys while this
yeah,
is going on? Yeah.
yeah. I think that's terribly missing. So it's a failure in storytelling, visual storytelling, to just focus so much on this one guy where it's not a solo book. So if you can't tell, if you
this
can't tell a
extra,
story with all these people, just reduce the amount of the team.
yeah, or throw in more panels and do some more storytelling. These weird, thicker black borders that he's doing here. He may have done it in past issues here and there, but he seems to be doing a lot of it here. I don't know what it's meant to add. I don't necessarily like it that much, to be honest. There's just, again, maybe adding again to that slightly different aesthetic with the inks and the colors and these, bigger, bolder black panels, borders. There's something about it that just doesn't really work for me.
I think he has used it before, and it has been used effectively on other ones where, like, if that middle panel, so if you got the top 2 panels, if that middle panel had the thicker border only and that border extended out, it would get more of that effect of making this panel stand out the way he would want it to, but it is used oddly here.
It just feels like the choices of which panels he's using it on are just kind of haphazard. There's no real reason for it.
Yeah. I very much agree. And because that thicker panel doesn't stand out, like it doesn't go above and below or be shorter.
Yeah, exactly. If it was to create some sort of overlapping effect, then it would probably work way better. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it just crops in. So yeah, it very much loses the effect. So finally, Bedrock does something.
And it's a huge splash page.
Yeah.
For one.
If you turn the page and then suddenly it was all Bedrock, just like if there was just 4 panels across the top of boom, boom, boom.
A sequence. Yeah, exactly. Sequence. Just a bit of a sequence of him doing what he's doing in this panel, but a little bit more of it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Give us 6 panels, 8 panels, maybe go panel crazy just to remind us he was there, or back and forth, Bedrock Prophet, something. It's a frustrating comic. And then you get to the next page, and again, explanation of Prophet 2. We, the readers, already know. We, the readers, have already been reminded. But then they show up again, and so it's like Prophet had to tell Die Hard who he was, and then Die Hard's like, "Oh, his name's John Prophet." They don't shorten that, and so he fought alongside Sentinel. Okay, that is a new key piece. Well, no, he told him, "I fought with your, with the other guys that look like you." So that's not new. Against the Disciples. That's all repeat then. We knew all of this already from issue 2, and we were already reintroduced it a couple pages ago. So I think a lot of comics would have had, when like the next guys show up, you just go, I'll catch you up. And the story keeps rolling because we, the reader, already know. So don't waste time saying it again.
Well, he's using a whole page to re-explain this, and just a whole lot of nothing is happening other than re-explaining what we already know.
Mm-hmm.
And also there's been a dialogue by Shaft where he's like, first of all, the narration on the top of the page of Die Hard, then the cavalry arrives, right? Instead of just saying that and then being there, could have had a short sequence of them entering, the premises. That would have been. I've said this before. I'm always big on explaining things visually, not in words, right? If you can. And then Shaft on the next panel, Vogue and Photon are doing a recon of the entire area. Well, that's great to know. Maybe we should have seen that a little bit earlier on, right? Like before, recon usually happens before you kind of jump in and attack. So like you said earlier, if you had Photon flying around before Die Hard and Bedrock jump into the fray, right? For what I know of, the military and military type missions, recon comes first.
And then you go, yeah.
I mean, I've never heard of recon happening after a battle. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
You need the information.
Or in the middle of a battle. Like, yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
So if the splash page had been used to, if they'd shown battle sequences, and then the splash page was like Bedrock, Diehard, Prophet surrounded, and Sentinels all around them. And then the next panels was like blades going into the robots, some arrows going into some robots, some blast hitting the robots, and then Diehard's monologue of the cavalry's arrived. Well, we're seeing it happen because the cavalry actually did something. In this case, more people just showed up. No cavalry arrived because there was no, like, they didn't come in and save the day.
We saw no part of them arriving. They're just there.
Yeah.
Cavalry hasn't arrived. They just like teleported in all of a sudden.
Yeah. It's frustrating. It's terrible visual storytelling. And this goes back to me as a kid not appreciating Jim Valentino, but as an adult going through those comics and going, oh yeah, this is actually, it's not flashy, but it's very good visual storytelling.
The storytelling is so much better. Yeah.
I know what's going on. I know who, I know what, when, where, and I'm learning why. I see the sequence, I can visually read the page, and then I can go back and get the additional information from the words. But here, it's like words have to try to explain all the things that you're not seeing, which then it doesn't connect. The story that's going on, I'm not seeing it. I'm not feeling like I'm in it. I almost may as well be reading one of those books where you get a piece of art so you can picture.
Yes. And then there's,
and then you read the text to know the story.
Absolutely. Yeah, it just feels like, you know, pretty much or most of the dialogue is used to explain things that should be explained visually. That is just not there. And, you know, Rob Liefeld I'm assuming he's doing this Marvel style. He's credited as the writer. So I bet you he draws the whole thing and then he comes back and he's like, oh shit, how do I explain that Shaft and Chapel are here? You know, so he's got to have to use narration and dialogue to explain why they're there instead of doing it visually. Like, you know, like you said, you know, you could have a whole more complicated sequence of seeing them enter the premises and this and that. What you said, I think, is very effective storytelling wise, where, you know, Bedrock, Diehard, Prophet surrounded. There's just too many disciples for them to take on. And then boom, you know, the disciples start being taken down one by, you know, an unseen force behind them. And then you reveal that it's, you know, Shaft and Chapel were showing up to save the guys, right?
Yeah.
That would make much more sense. And that could be done in 2 or 3 panels at the most, right?
Yeah. Gosh, and again, the, you know, also again, the darker, it's all these darker patches. Like the reason that this art looks so different, these darker patches, darker colors, it's not as much fun. And his visual storytelling has fallen off because in issue 2, there was a lot of like good explanation of kind of this new scenario that we're in. So it doesn't flow as a mini series, but still issue 2 by itself is a standoff issue. Thrown in a scenario, we get background details, we get backgrounds, and we get fun action and things flow and we kind of know what's going on. And this abandons all of that. It was like issue 1 to issue 2, we took a step forward. In issue 3, storytelling wise, there's still kind of a progression. Visually, we don't like it as much because of the new inker, and we like Rob inking himself. And then this one, it's just like he's trying to be better, but it's all coming out worse.
Yeah, because I definitely think all these choices on his part are to make the book, in his mind, better, but it's having the opposite effect. I mean, the in this first panel of Chapel and Shaft there, you know, if you know, cluttered inking, too much of it, maybe on these small figures and the dark colors, I just feel like that whole section is just more muddled now all of a sudden than it would have been in prior issues.
Also, that panel 1, unless these guys showed up at exactly this moment, Chapel and Shaft should have, as they're entering, seen Prophet and Sentinel fighting the same enemy. Oh, excuse me, Prophet and Diehard fighting the same enemy. And so immediately known, okay, they're together. Let's find out more.
Yeah.
Guns down. Hey, who's your new friend? Boom. You keep rolling.
And also that panel, you know, you've got rubble on the ground. Would it have hurt to throw in just, you know, a disciple arm kind of coming in?
Nice.
You know what I mean? 1 or 2.
Yeah.
a foot ahead,
Yeah.
the severed head from earlier somewhere on the ground. Don't think that would have taken that much time to draw, right? And would just again give us a bit more information connecting this shot and this scene to what we saw prior. It's like Bedrock punches a disciple, all of a sudden, no more disciples around. Seems kind of, they at this point they've probably, fought and destroyed, I would say maybe a dozen disciples. You'd think there'd be a few pieces of those guys on the ground here.
Yes, there is a robot disciple, although they're shrunken, in front of Prophet and one in front of Die Hard, but you hardly notice them because they're still camouflaged by the figures.
And the color just it doesn't pop at all. Wow, I never even noticed that.
Blends in with Prophet's shoulder strap.
Yeah. The shield, right, seems to kind of same. The shield and the disciple are pretty much the same color. So
versus your way, just disciple parts all over the place. It would stand out, and each part then can represent a disciple. So they don't necessarily have to be from the same one, and that it wouldn't be more drawing, but by having them separate parts, it would feel like there's more volume of disciples being represented.
And more destruction, right? Some disciples just get smacked, others get ripped apart, and also disciples, I guess I just noticed this since you mentioned it, but in here they're being colored, fairly similar in gray tones and stuff. We get a green one here with Bedrock, but all the other disciples seem to be kind of in the same bluish gray tones. If you remember the coloring of the disciples in the Brian Murray issue, there was a yellow one, there's a purple one, there's like, quite a distinction between all of them, and they all popped and were really easy to see.
Absolutely. Doing that thing that you've mentioned before, it's like, sure, apples are red, the sky's blue, grass is green, but you can really color comics for the emotion or for the feel or to make things pop and stand out. It doesn't have to always be realistic.
Sometimes the contrast is more important than the realism, right?
Yeah.
King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents STARCRASHER one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KingComics.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.
Like! Subscribe!